Dan here. Hope you're having a great day. Today I'm just going to show you how to improvise in different styles using different techniques around the chord progression I was just playing. So it's just something I was just practicing recently, and I just chose G sharp minor as a key, partly because it's a fairly unusual key to play. There's no open strings, and really what I want to show you today is patterns and how amazing they are on the bass, and how just using a few patterns and then changing the technique and the feel up a little bit, you can kind of quite drastically change bass lines. So I'm on the 4th fret of the E string, that's where G sharp is, and I'm playing a G sharp natural minor scale, that's the key. I'm going to assume that you know this, and if you don't, I've got plenty of videos that go into more detail, so I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but that's the G sharp natural minor scale. It has a set of 7 different chords that you can make from it. And I'm going to focus today on the 1, the 4 and the 5. They're all minor, they're all the same quality. Now that means that you can play exactly the same shapes on them. So that's why I think this is a really good thing to practice, because I mean it gets loads of things together, your technique, your knowledge of theory, patterns, the whole lot. So what did I start with? I was going... That's what I was doing. So I'm on the 4th fret, that's the G sharp, that's the 1 chord. So that's the root note. So I was just doing that. Then I was doing a hammer on from fret 4 to 6 on the A string. Make sure your finger's nice and curled when you're doing the hammer on. Pluck the first note, hammer your finger down onto the second. Then I'm going to the 4th fret of the D string, and then returning to that previous note. And then another hammer on fret 4 to 6 on the D string. If you know your minor pentatonic scale, which you should, that's frets 4 to 7 on the E string and then 4 to 6 on the remaining strings. Your chord tones are within that scale. So when I'm going... They're really strong notes. I've got a root, a 5th, a flat 7, and an octave. And that note that I played on the 4th fret of the A string, that's just a 4th. I mean, I'm not really thinking about intervals too much. I just know that that pattern sounds good and fits under the fingers well. And this is the cool thing about this particular progression. If you now move up to the 9th fret, it's exactly the same shape. So that's C sharp minor. So we've got G sharp minor there, that's the 1 chord. Then we're going to C sharp minor, that's the 4 chord. 2 frets higher, D sharp minor, same shape. Now just by using those notes on their own, you can start to create lines in different styles. So, I mean, let's just name some styles and go for it. So sort of a more soul thing. So I'm just using the same notes, root, 5th, octave, a little minor 7th in there at the end. Let's do a reggae line. For this, I'm just using a root note, a minor 3rd, and a perfect 5th. That's just a minor triad. So that's fret 4 and 7 on the E string and fret 6 on the A string. If you keep everything on the E string as I'm doing here, you can practice your hand shift. So you've got to go all the way from the 4th fret there to the 9th fret. That's a good thing to do. What about rock? Let's do rock. So I'm just going to do... I was actually just using my thumb and index finger like this, just to almost be like a pick. So I'm just doing downstrokes on the fingernail. But you can use a plectrum. I've got one here. I'll use a plectrum. So I'm just doing eighth notes this time, and I was just adding in a few minor thirds there. I don't know if you noticed, but just now for the reggae thing, I told you to play the minor third 3 frets across from the root note. You can also play it 2 frets down and 1 string down towards the floor. Okay, let's move on to something else. I was doing some slap as well. Now, I do a lot of remote sessions where people send me their tracks and I play on them. And I mean, I've been doing that for over 10 years and I've been studying bass for a long time. So I have to, in that sort of side of what I do, I've got to come up with bass lines quite a lot. And when you do that enough times, you realize that sort of using notes from these scales and these chord tones and things like that comes up all the time. Now all I was doing there was just a root and an octave, very simple notes, using my thumb and then index to pop. And since I'm slapping, I'm really making sure that my muting's taken care of, and that's with this hand, almost laying my fingers flat across the string, so you've got nothing ringing out. Then I'm barring my first finger, and I'm playing that note, the 4th fret of the G string. And all that is that minor third up the octave, minor 10th. I was just sliding into the notes a bit to make it sound cool. A little bit of vibrato as well, but notice how the same pattern works on each of those chords. They're all minor chords, they're all the same. What about chords? Let's do the same notes. This time I'm going to use thumb, index finger and middle finger. I'll show you that. So got my thumb on the E string on that root note, and then on the 5th I'm using my index to pluck. That's a free stroke when you pluck away from the body of the bass. I've got this barring thing going on here, and then look how my middle finger is already over that G string. When you're working on technique, always have a finger ready to play the next note. Let's do a minor 7th chord. So in terms of plucking, it'll be exactly the same. But this time I'm going all the way up here to the 13th, 14th, 16th fret, G sharp up the octave. And all my notes are on the same fret. I've got 1st finger on the E string. I've got 2nd finger on the D and 3rd finger on the G. So you've got a root, a minor 7th, and that minor 10th again. Nice little voicing there. I'm playing it up there because it's a bit muddy down here. You can play it there. And remember I talked about that minor pentatonic shape? Works on every single one of those chord tones. You can stick some of those into the chords. You can get some little ghost notes in there to make it a bit more percussive. Now, first thing I said, G sharp minor, natural minor, that's the key that we're in. So you see there, that's just a G sharp natural, sorry, G sharp minor pentatonic scale. So it does help It's essential, in fact, to know your scale, your patterns everywhere. Let's do some sort of a pop line now and embellish things a little bit. So far I've just used exactly the same patterns on each of the 1, the 4 and the 5. But let's do something like this. So all I'm doing here, I'm playing the root note of the chord, sliding up to the 5th, and then playing the octave and back to the 5th. Now at that point, I'm at the octave, so it's exactly like the first note. And if you know your scale, it's really, I go on about this all the time, but it's very, very important to know your patterns and to know the names of your notes so that you can do this instantly. Then you can be hearing something in your head and playing it successfully because you know where all the notes are. So what I'm doing is that, but up the octave. And in fact, in reverse. Did you hear that? Okay, so that's my first line on that 1 chord. Great news is that on the next chord, the 4, it's on the 9th fret. Exactly the same pattern works, okay? These are all notes that belong to that G sharp natural minor. But here, it nearly works, but doesn't quite work. So the first bit's the same. We got a minor second here, okay? And that's to do with modes. In fact, that G sharp natural minor is a mode. It's called the Aeolian. And then when you go to this one, the 4 chord, the Dorian mode fits on that. And the 5 is the Phrygian mode. So on the 11th fret, it looks exactly like a natural minor scale, except the second note is down 1 fret, okay? That's one way of remembering how to play it. And it's just what happens on the 5 chord in a natural minor scale. It's just like a law, it's just a fact, okay? So that would be why there, that's not the right note. And I find that if you play through notes of a scale, you tend to sound really melodic and tuneful. It's not really a hard and fast rule. But that, I was just going through notes of the scale. It does sound melodic, doesn't it? So obviously this is good for jamming, for improvising, for coming up for bass lines for your band or recording for someone, but also just for good old-fashioned ear training. Because if you start to hear this kind of thing, you can work out bass lines easier. I did a cover of a Thundercat bass line, a Mac Miller song that I forget the name of now. That's what it is. But that's a very similar idea to what I just did. So when I heard it, I've played this so many times that I already know what it is. Okay. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about this. But just to recap, you've got your G sharp natural minor scale. That's the key we're in. And we're just playing patterns around on the 1, the 4 and the 5. In this case, I was going 4th fret, 9th fret, 11th fret. Of course, you can go to the A string as well. The point being, all those chords are the same, so you can do a lot of the same patterns over it, and it's just really great. I had a drum beat, 120 beats per minute, and I was just playing around on that. You can do different tempos without a metronome. You can put a looper on. It's just a really simple idea that I think is going to give you so much mileage in your practice. Of course, do this in different keys. There'll be other keys where you have open strings you can use. I didn't want open strings in this, just to show you that you can move around and it's fine. So you can work on your technique, you can work on your groove. It just works on everything. So that's a really good one to do. If you have any questions about anything I've spoken about, then leave a comment. I'll get back to all of them. Other than that, if I could just ask you to subscribe, because I'm doing at least 2 videos every single week, and I think I'm going to do a lot more like this, just giving you things to play, really, because that's kind of why you're playing bass. You want to play loads of cool things, don't you? And hopefully make up your own ideas as well as you go, and just understand this whole thing, this whole music thing, the more you go. So I'm just going to explain loads of things as I go. So any suggestions, let me know. Other than that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.